Today I'm showing you guys how to track your income and expenses with this automated sheet. Here's how it works. First, on a blank spreadsheet, we're going to create our Accounts tab. This will list off all of our different expense and revenue accounts. As an example, I'll create the accounts of work revenue, dividend revenue, and other revenue. We'll also need some expense categories such as gas, groceries, and whatever else you might need. Throughout this spreadsheet, our revenue accounts will be colored blue and our expense accounts will be colored red, just so we can visually understand it a little bit better. Also, as we go through this sheet, I'm just going to make things look a little bit nicer, which includes changing the font, the spacing, and other things such as the borders. Later, if you want to add a new account, all you have to do is go into this accounts list and insert a row. But for now, we're just going to leave it with these 8 accounts. Next, we're going to make our journal tab, and this is where we're going to enter in all of our individual transactions. You're going to want columns for the date, account, amount, and any notes for the given transaction. To help create this portion, I'm going to enter in a sample transaction where on January 1st of 2024, we had a gas expense of $50, and for notes, we're just going to write that it was gas. For some simple formatting, I'm going to start with the date. I'm going to select column A and center this whole column, and then additionally, I'm going to select format, number, and date. This way, if I entered another transaction on, let's say, March 15th, I can then click off of the cell and it will know March 15th, 2024. But we'll delete that for now. I also want to format the amount section by selecting column C, going into this more format section here, and then select accounting. Next, and quite crucially, I want to format the account section so that every time we don't have to type in the account name, but we can select a drop-down menu from our list of accounts here. So what I'm going to do is select gas expense and hit data, then data validation, and then I can add a rule. And where it says criteria, we're going to select drop down from a range. And then if we select this little button where you can select data range here, we're going to click on it, go back to our accounts tab here, and then just highlight all of our accounts and hit OK. So what this now means is we can go back to journal and you see this little drop down menu. We can click on it and then select any one of the accounts here. Also, what you could do, we'll delete gas expense, you could just start typing in the account and you'll see it will pop up as well. Now in terms of formatting, we're going to scroll down to the right here and select advanced options. And then what I want to do is not a chip, because the chip format kind of cuts off the whole text. Arrow, plain text, we want arrow. And then we can hit done, X out, and we're also probably going to want to make this column a little bit wider. And now that I'm looking at it, we want to resize all of these columns. So what we're going to do is select column B, right click, and then resize the column to size 200. That should fit most. We're going to select column C, resize it to 150, and notes, we're going to resize to 600 in case there's any special notes we need to make. Then for some little formatting, I'm going to change the font again. I'm going to take all the headers and center them to the left. I'll merge these top 4 cells here, merge them together, and then you can write something like income and expenses 2024. You could title that whatever you'd like. And then additionally, we can bold all of that. We can create borders around all of this. In terms of colors, I think giving the headers some color makes them look a little bit better. We'll make this one a dark blue, this one an even darker blue. And to make those words pop out a little better, we can color them as white. And this part, feel free to play around and make whatever color scheme you'd like. And then once you want to add a new transaction, all you have to do is insert a row above, and then you can keep doing that sometimes what I like to do is just have a bunch of open rows, and then say I have a transaction on January 2nd, I'll just put it here and work from the bottom up. That way your most recent transactions will always be at the top. And there's one final thing I want to do on this tab. Remember earlier I mentioned that our revenue accounts will be blue and expenses will be red. So I want to format it so that the expenses appear red here and revenue appears blue. How I do that is selecting column B, and then I'm going to select format and conditional formatting. So format cells if, let's say, text contains. So if it contains the word revenue, and then we can change the color to that blue we wanted. We can then add another rule, format cells if text contains expense, and then change this to that red color. Then we can hit done. X out, and then if you see, let's go back to making a new transaction, January 15th, and we want work revenue, so salary, we can write that in the notes, it's our salary. Let's say it's $500. Now all of this is going to flow through to our net income tab, and this is the third and final tab that we are creating today. The goal of this tab is to pull all of the transactions from the journal so that we can see everything grouped together by type of transaction and by month as well. So first things first, we're going to start in cell B6. I'm picking that just so I have more room to fit everything for later. And all we're going to do is put our 12 months going down. You really just have to type in the first two and then drag all the way down to, looks like, the 17th row. And then once again, we want headers in these cells that have all of our different accounts. So what I'm going to do is select that first cell and type in data validation, add a rule again, and we're going to do drop down from a range, select data range, once again go back to our accounts and select all of our accounts, hit OK. Again, we're going to come back to net income, then scroll down, advanced options, and change it to the arrow display style. Once we select done, now we can start entering all of our accounts. And what I'm going to do is take our drop down menu here, copy it, and paste it over. The reason why there are 5 currently is because we have 5 expense accounts. I'm going to start with the expense and then do the revenue off to the side. So we have our gas expense, groceries expense, clothing expense, utilities expense, and other expense. These don't fit perfectly, so what I'm going to do for all of them is make them 3 cells high. So I'm just going to merge these 3 cells together. And then what I'm also going to do is, you see this vertical alignment button, I'm going to center into the middle. And then for text wrapping, I'm going to wrap around so that it now fits in the whole cell. I'm actually just going to drag this gas expense all the way across now, and then change these back to the proper account. It's just a little easier this way. And now for some simple formatting, I'm going to merge all these cells and just title it expenses. I can even center that. I'm going to highlight the whole sheet and change the font once again. Off to the side here, I'm going to total the expenses. So I'm going to create a header that says that. And then I can even merge these 4 cells together. And like we did before, vertically align it to the center and wrap the text as well. Another thing I'm going to do real quick is highlight the whole sheet again and center all the text. I'll also make a total section here and create a cell here, merging all these cells. That just says that it's the year 2024. Again, I'm going to center this text. Okay, and now I'm going to highlight this whole range, give it borders, and then I'm going to start changing some things. Bolding here, making the expense headers the red color we wanted, and making the subtotals a slightly lighter red. I generally use this kind of color scheme. And then finally, I'm going to make this 2024 text a little bit bigger, fill in this cell in gray, make this total bold and fill it in with a lighter gray, and then column A, I'm going to resize to 25 just to give us a little bit more room. Okay, and now a little quicker, I'm going to kind of speed through this, but I also want to make a little table off to the right here for revenue accounts. So I'm just going to copy these drop downs over. I believe we had work revenue, dividend revenue, and other revenue. I'll copy over the total as well, rename this total revenue, and create a header here that says revenue. For formatting again, we can make this bold, give it a border, and change the color of all of this to that blue color we've been using. Then I'm just going to use borders once again, and for our totals here, use a slightly lighter blue so it's formatted similarly to the expense table. And there's one final table I wanted to add, so we're going to add another size 25 column in between, and this will be our net income table. So we're just going to take these 8 cells, merge them together, and write net income. We can make this bold, wrap it, and center it. And I think we're also probably going to want to make this a little bit bigger in size. And for net income, I guess I'll use this green color. And then down the side, we'll use a lighter green color. I missed one spot. Use this lighter green color. Create our border all the way around. And for this, all we're going to do is copy over the 12 months into this first column. Can copy over total as well. And the simple formula we're going to use for net income is net income equals total revenue minus total expenses. So cell M6 minus H6, hit enter. We can drag that all the way down, and we're going to want to format this, going to more formats, and then accounting. All these revenue cells will also be the accounting format, and all these expense cells are going to be the accounting format as well. Now, as far as the totals are concerned, total expenses is going to equal the sum. So we're going to type in equals sum, open our parentheses, and highlight all of the January expenses and hit enter. Once we do that, we can drag this formula all the way down, and we can do the same thing on the bottom here. So we can type in equals sum, open our parentheses, and highlight all of the gas expenses for every month and hit enter. We can then drag this all the way across, and we're going to do the same thing for revenue. Use our sum formula, drag across, hit enter, copy this all the way down, and then do the same down here, equals sum, parentheses, highlight everything, hit enter, and then drag this formula across to carry over. So the final part here is we're going to automate so that if we enter a January gas expense in our journal, like we did, it will pull it from here so that we see a $50 figure in this cell. The formula we're using to create that is going to need to distinguish each month from each other. So to do that, I'm just going to make a little month chart off to the side. We can do it in cells R, S, and T, or in columns R, S, and T. We're going to need 3 columns for it. And we can write some little headers here: month, start date, and end date. And all you have to do is, again, enter in the 12 months of the year. So I typed in the first 2, and I can drag this down to get the rest of them. And then the start date and end date columns, we're going to need to highlight and format again. Format number date, format as a date. and just write the first date of each month, or the first day of each month in the start date column. We can drag this down, and then the end date of each month in the end date column. For 2024, you're going to need to write February 29th because there were 29 days, as this was a leap year. Google Sheets knows the final day of each month, and they can already tell what we're doing here, so we just have to highlight these first two cells and drag all the way down, and it accurately displays the final date of each month. Okay, and now we have everything we need to create our final formula. So what I'm going to do is start by going into cell C6, which is the January gas expense cell, and we're going to type in equals sum ifs and open our parentheses. If you hit the little question mark off to the side here, it tells you which part of the formula you're in. And when you're creating a longer formula, I recommend opening this up every single time. So while you're in this parentheses here, you have to make sure you're in here for this to work. You're going to go back to the journal tab, and all we're going to do is click on this C header. So it's going to highlight all of column C on this tab. We're then going to do a comma and do the same thing but with column B. One more comma, and then we go back to the net income tab and select on gas expense C3. So it already says $50. That's the preview of the formula here, because this formula, what it's doing, if I go back to the journal, we are summing column C here. So we are summing all the amounts in here, given that column B equals the same thing as C3. So to go through that again, we are summing all the amounts here if the account equals the same account we've selected in cell C3. What we also want to do is make sure that the date is appropriate. So we're going to add another comma and keep going with this formula. So I'm going to go back to the journal page and select column A now, the date. I'm going to go back to the net income tab, add another comma, and then in quotations, I'm going to type in greater than or equal to, just by typing in the greater than and then the equal symbol. We'll end our quotations, and then what I need to type in is the and symbol, and then I'm going to scroll over to the right here and select cell S6. This will make sense in a second, just stick with me for now. I'm then going to add another comma, go back to the journal, and select column A once more. Go back to net income, comma, and then in quotations, less than or equal to, end quotations, type in the and symbol again, and now select the end date for January, T6. We can now close our parentheses, and that's our formula. So if I scroll over here and click back into this formula, what I did there is, if I highlight this last section of the formula, I am summing if the, go back to the journal section, if this column A is greater than or equal to January 1st and less than or equal to January 31st. So basically what it's saying is any date included from January 1st to January 31st will be summed in this January row. Okay, I'm going to make a couple changes to the formula that are key so that we can easily copy all of them over without having to type in the whole formula a million times. I'm just going to need to place some dollar signs in this formula so that the references don't get all screwed up. So going into this formula, the first dollar sign is going to be before the letter C here, and then another one before the next letter C. We're also going to place dollar signs before each letter B here, $1 sign in between the C and the 3 here, dollar signs before each letter A here, dollar sign before S here, more dollar signs before the A's again, and then a dollar sign before the letter T here, and hit enter. And now we have our final formula. So let's select cell C6. We're going to copy it, and all we have to do is paste in this entire range here, and then we can also paste it in this entire range of revenue here. So let me now select this, copy, paste this whole revenue range. you can see that $500 popped up in this cell J6 for January work revenue because this was already displayed in our journal. And for an example, today's July 9th, so I could type in 7/9. Let's say we bought a new shirt today, so we'll do clothing expense, and we'll type in $30, new shirt for notes. We go back to net income, and you see that July clothing expense of $30 is displayed here. And if you go to net income, you can see for January, we have a net income of 500 because we have 500, or 450 rather, because we have 500 in revenue minus 50 in expenses. Then we have a negative $30 net income in July because we only displayed one transaction, and that sums to our total net income for the year. And that's it for our sheet, really. Now it's automated. All you have to do is, again, enter in your accounts, and then anytime you have a transaction, enter in here, and the rest is automated for you. As a thank you for watching to the end, I'll also drop the template so you guys can download that and make your own copy if that's a little easier than creating the whole thing. If you don't want to miss new useful spreadsheets like this, then subscribe and hit the bell so that you can stay updated for all the new content. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed.